Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, sir. So let's go.
Good afternoon, dear dear participants. I welcome you all in this faculty development program organized by Department of Electronics and Telecommunication, MCT's Rajiv Gandhi Institute of Technology, Mumbai. Thank you for your overwhelming response for this FTP on academic transformation with secrets of empowerment. We are fortunate to have eminent speakers. Mr. Rajiv Kumar, Chief Customer Officer at Apri Incorporation, London, UK. We will have Professor Chaitanya Agrawal, Makhanlal Chaturvedi, University of Journalism, Bhopal. And today we have with us Mr. Nitin Shingne, Industry Partner, Edison, New Jersey, United States. In consultation with, for this faculty development program, in consultation with the resource person, we have come out with certain objectives. For example, few of them are to create realization of being ready to change, to identify 5 things that you will change in your academic profession, to create awareness on some cultural aspects from around the world that has contributed to success, understanding US education system and its contribution for innovation and entrepreneurship. I welcome you once again. I welcome you all. Let us have glimpses of activities. Those are organized by Electronics and Telecommunication Department in last academic year. Over to you, madam.
Audio.
Thank you, madam. In this inaugural session, let us let us pray to Goddess Saraswati with Saraswati Vandana. Madam, please.
या कुन्देन्दुतुषारहारधवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युतशङ्करप्रभृतिभिः देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेषजाड्यापहा
Okay, thank you. In this inaugural session, I would to brief you about the institute and to welcome you all. I would like to invite our honorable principal, Dr. Sanjay Bokade. Sir, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Professor Savarkar. I was extremely happy when I came to know that EHTC department is hosting a 3 days faculty development program with the title as Academic Transformation and the Employee Empowerment. This is something, a topic which is of utmost importance of today. And within itself, it has got such a rich content or such a rich kind of understanding, which is a need of the today. Again, I repeat on it. Somewhere uh, in the due course of time, when we were handling our academics, maybe we all had a resistance to some kind of change, or we were not we happened to be so much rigid with all those traditional methods. And it's only not about teaching learning, it is something even beyond that teaching learning. It is the academic transformation. What comes to my mind is it is a transformation in the sense, what are the academic contents also, the syllabus, the course curriculum, the methods of teaching learning. And I really believe that it is now the time where it needs a paradigm shift or everything. And this shift is actually of the nature, this shift should be of actually of the nature of transformation. It should not be a change, because change is subjected to again change, but transformation is something which is not subjected to any change. Once you get transformed, you get yourself in a newer version of yourself. So today I see that after the wonderful deliberations by the eminent speaker, Mr. Nitin Shingne, we would see some good inputs which will take up, which will help us in academic transformations also. And employee empowerment and the aspects related to it, they are all so much wonderful. You can derive maximum amount of job satisfaction if you are if the employee is properly empowered, and it invariably lifts up the self confidence of oneself. And with empowerment, employee become more self dependent also, and he gets proactively involved into various activities of the place where he works. He enhances his skill, his competency, and everything. And overall, he become even more creative. His efficiency increases, so on and so forth. So I'm looking forward today for some excellent takeaway by all the faculty members and all the participants who has joined us in this program. So I welcome once again all those who have joined us on this virtual platform of Zoom, and also those who are out of this Zoom. I mean, those who are viewing us from the YouTube mode. So thank you so much, and all the best. Wish you all a wonderful takeaway. Thank you. Over to you, Professor Savarkar.
Thank you very much, sir, for your nice words, encouraging words. I will seek an opportunity to introduce the HTC department by inviting our head of the department and vice principal of the college, Dr. Sanjay Bokade. Sorry, Dr. Sanjay Deshmukh.
Yes, sir.
Sir, please.
Thank you, sir. Very good afternoon to one and all. Respected dignitaries on this virtual dais, respected chief guest for the inaugural function, and the eminent speaker for today's session, respected Sri Nitin Shingne, sir, honorable principal of our institute, Professor Dr. Sanjay Bokade, sir, heads of the department, teaching and non-teaching staff of our institute, and dear participants. It's my pleasure to welcome you all for this inaugural function of 3 days faculty development program on academic transformation with secrets of empowerment, which is organized by Department of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering of our institute, MCT's Rajiv Gandhi Institute of Technology, Mumbai. Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering Department of MCT's Rajiv Gandhi Institute of Technology, Mumbai. It was established in the year 1992, and it caters education in undergraduate program with the intake of 120, PG program, that is Masters in Engineering in Electronics and Telecommunication, was established in the year 2012 with the intake of 18. And the department also has a research program leading to PhD degree in areas of electronics and communication engineering. The Department of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering meets the requirement of technological challenges and the technical manpower requirements through its qualified and experienced faculty members, skilled supporting staff, and with the help of well-equipped laboratories. The academic excellence of the department is also reflected in more than 95% of results in the final year. As far as alumni are concerned, our alumni are working in responsible positions in many multinational companies. The department has an exceptional placement record, with most of the graduates making it to the leading core and IT companies like Accenture, SCL, Emerson's, Reliance Communication, and so on. The department has a good record of organizing seminars, workshops, and symposium in emerging technological areas for overall development of students and faculties. The main objective of organizing this FDP is, as Principal Sir said, to know the various approaches or ideas that can help to deploy empowerment in the education, which will in future help the faculties and students to acquire the skills they need to succeed for any ongoing personal or their professional developments. Let's say it can be simple as a collaborative effect that is used for learning rather than using a transmission mode of teaching. So such various approaches or ideas will be discussed here to deploy empowerment in education. The other objective is to create awareness on some cultural aspects from around the world that has contributed to the success. We are very fortunate that the speakers for the FDP are very eminent and are at key positions in their respective fields. It will be a great opportunity for all of us to attend and learn from their experiences. On behalf of the Institute and on behalf of the department, I would like to offer my sincere thanks to eminent speakers, respected Sri Nitin Shingne sir, who is an industry partner in Edison, New Jersey, US, Sri Rajiv Kumar sir, who is Chief Customer Officer at Apirino Industry Corporation, London, UK, Professor Dr. Chaitanya Agrawal is Professor of Computer Science Department at Makan Lal Chaturvedi National Institute of Journalism. I thank you all the eminent speakers for accepting our invitation and to enlighten us on various ideas and approaches to deploy empowerment in the education. Dear speakers, your expertise is of great value to the FDP. Thank you. I express my sincere thanks to all the participants for their overwhelming response, who have joined actually online from various parts of Maharashtra and other parts of the nation also. Thank you for your support. We are extremely thankful to our management to give us the opportunity to organize the FDP and extending a continuous support. I express my gratitude and sincere thanks to Honorable Dr. Uddhav Bhosle sir, who is the Vice Chancellor of Swami Ramanand Tirth Marathwada University, Nanded, and our ex-principal for his continual guidance and motivation. I extend my sincere thanks to our respected principal, Dr. Sanjay Bokade sir, for his valuable guidelines, support and help. We really appreciate it, sir. We also like to acknowledge the enormous support that we have received from heads of the department, the faculties, staff member, teaching and non-teaching staff for this FDP. Thank you all. I thank all for joining online on various platforms for this FDP, and I hope definitely it will be a great learning experience for all of us. Thank you so much. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deshmukh sir. Now it's indeed a great pleasure to introduce today's eminent speaker, Mr. Nitin Shingne. After completing his graduation in 1990 in electronics engineering, he has served as a lecturer for 2 years in Mumbai Engineering College. Later on, he has completed his master's in electronics in 1994 from VCTI Mumbai. He has a long industrial experience of 25 years on various platforms. He has worked in various parts of the world like United States, Canada, Japan, Vietnam, United Arab Emirates, and traveled to more than 25 countries. He also have a rich experience to work in many Fortune 500 companies like Procter & Gamble, MasterCard, Emirates Airlines. Currently, sir is working as an industry partner, Edison, New Jersey, United States. And there he leads engagements in e-commerce and internet-related technologies. So, welcome you, sir. Now, I would like to request to Nitin, sir, to start its session. Nitin, sir, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Rajiv Gandhi Institute of Technology, Dr. Bokade, Dr. Deshmukh, Professor Savarkar, and everybody for giving me the opportunity. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for your time today, and I hope we make it useful over here. Essentially, having traveled to so many countries over a period of time, we all always think, how can we take this experience back to our country? What is it that can be done for our country? And this is a small opportunity for me to share my experience, with you all. Essentially, we will cover two aspects over here. As I have said, what are some of the cultural aspects that I have seen while working across the countries in the world that have contributed, to those countries developing themselves, those societies developing themselves, and then some aspect of the US educational system, which helps in creating an innovation-led and an entrepreneurial society here in the US. So my daughter also studies engineering here in the US, so that has made me a little easy to understand, how the educational aspects of the system work here. I have been in the US for more than 15 years now, and have been traveling around the world for nearly 20 years. So let's start with this. So I'll share some of my experiences with some of the countries. Starting with Japan, and we will look at Japan and Germany, and coming to US before we touch a little bit upon India. What you see in this picture is an electronics store. This may look like a mall to you, but this is an electronics store in Japan. This is an equivalent of Chroma in Japan. And as you must have seen, it's a huge store. It's just, one single store. Typically, electronic stores in Japan are, this big or even bigger than this. They have like floors and floors where you will just find, categories of electronics stored are there. So as I was working with this particular company, we were working on an e-commerce project. And normally, as you must have seen, when you try to place an order on any e-commerce portal, you want to understand when are you going to get the product. So whatever you are ordering, you want to know whether you are going to get it, next day or in a week or, 2 weeks or a month or 2 months and things like that. Very critical, for any e-commerce buyer. Unless we have that information, a lot of buyers may not want to buy on the e-commerce site. And so me being, one of the technology leaders on this particular engagement, I asked this particular customer, Edeon, as to how many products, out of the products that they have. Now, typically all of these retailers, have a category which is around, 1 lakh product, 2 lakh products and things like that. They like, sell hundreds and thousands of products. So one of the things I asked them is, how many of these products do you import? Because when somebody imports, it has got its own, transportation times and things like that. There is also some amount of uncertainty that gets added and things like that. What I was shocked to hear is that they said, we don't import anything. Everything is made in Japan. So nowadays, particularly in our country, when we are talking about, becoming self-reliant and things like that, this experience I thought would really, help us get the confidence that there are countries in the world who really don't import anything. And there are, of course, more examples I can give, but, this is probably, the best I have seen. They said, we don't import anything. Whatever you see on this 1 lakh, 2 lakh products, that you see in such a large store, everything is made in Japan. So an interesting aspect. Another thing that I have seen, when working with Japanese customers is that they will decide, what is the launch date. So what is the date, by which this project will get completed? They decide that. The CEO at the top level will decide that. And then they will tell their people that, okay, this is the time by which this project has to be finished. And they work backwards. And as we know, in case of Japan, they never get delayed. So whatever is the timeline, they will make sure they execute the project, and they are live on that particular date. So in relation with that, many other stories we must have heard as to, how a bullet train typically gets delayed only by 10 seconds in a year or so. Okay. So some interesting aspect about Japan. There are many others, that definitely we can learn the kind of commitment Japanese people. Although see, as a democracy, they are also very divided. Just like probably any other democracy, be it India, be it US, in a democracy there are a lot of people who have different points of views. But in Japan, what you will see is that whenever there is a need to unite around a cause, they will do. I will give you another example. So when there was a tsunami and their nuclear power plant went offline, the power generation within their country, came down drastically. And then one of their ministers, he came online and he said, now we all need to reduce our power consumption. Next day onwards, nobody was using the elevators, nobody was using the ACs. Next day, they had a 70% surplus of electricity. The power minister had to come back online and say, okay, we can use some more power. So that's the kind of, national resolve that I have seen, with Japanese people. Let's move to Germany. What has been the experience with Germany? Now, what you see over here is, in fact, this is a manufacturing plant in India being owned by a company named Bombardier Transportation. Now, Bombardier Transportation, many of you may not be aware, but this is a company that makes rail cars for the Delhi Metro. Now, the picture that you see over here is the rail car, which is in fact getting exported to Australia. Now, when I was working with this particular German customer, this was nearly 10 years back when I was working with them, we were working on a software. And this was an old software. This was a 7-year-old software. It was being developed by somebody else. It was being maintained by Accenture. And because it has become old, they wanted to refresh the software. They wanted to create a new version of the software. Now, this software was also very critical. This software used to take data, financial data from 110 different countries in which Bombardier used to operate at that point in time. It used to take financial data and finally create a balance sheet and report it to the stock market. So very critical application, nobody could afford to make any mistake in, redoing this application. Now, typically in software engineering, as you all know, what we do is whenever we have such a requirement, we go and study, what is the existing application. To our surprise, when we talked to that customer, we said, we want to study the existing application. They said, there is no need to study the existing application. This is the set of documentation. You take this documentation, everything that this application does is written in this document. And to our surprise, we implemented that particular software with that documentation. And after we went live, when we went live, we didn't even tell Accenture that we have developed such a software. They also didn't tell Accenture that they have, that we have developed such a software, to replace that older software. And the moment we went live, Accenture was shocked to know that there is another application that has replaced their application, and there is absolutely zero defect in that new software. So what I wanted to share with you is that is how detailed, that is how methodical, and that is how persistent German people are. They maintained all of this, over a period of 7 years with no gap at all. So we developed as per that, and it worked perfect. And as I said, it was a very critical piece of software. Using that software, their CFO and their CEO, reported into the stock market. That is about, how German companies work. There are also certain maybe I will mention another important aspect, what we noticed about German society. And as we as a country, try and adopt, what are some of the good things in other countries, a lot of us, try and learn things from US, because a lot of us people have come to US, they see US, and, we then try to learn from, what is good in US. But what I saw in Germany is that although the society is very advanced, they live within their means. So in most of the German houses, in most of the German cars, you will not find an air conditioner. And Germany gets very hot during summer. It is as hot as, how India gets hot in the summer. And they will roll down their windows and they will drive like that. So they have, in my view, now that we see in India, even small kids don't want to live without an AC, right? So it's very important to learn things from other countries and things like that. There were other some. So I will quote one other small incident. I was in Munich, Germany. I reached there at 12 o'clock in the night at the hotel, and I was very hungry. I had taken a flight from India, and I had reached there. I went to the hotel reception and I said, I am very hungry. I want to go out for to eat something. Is it safe to go outside? And the lady did not understand when I asked them, is it safe to go outside? Because the idea of, being unsafe is very, they don't have that idea that there is something that can be unsafe, for anybody who is even new to the city, who is new to the country, to go out at 12 o'clock at night. And there was nobody on the road. There was hardly anybody. I saw one guy who had a beer in his hand, who crossed me. I was scared, but we just crossed each other. I walked for around 2 kilometers that night to a restaurant, and I came back, around 1 o'clock. So things like that, that are so different in countries. I will go to the next one, United States. One of the things that I have seen with the people in United States is that they dream very big. They dream very big. They do not think whether something is possible or not. They dream big, and then they figure out, how something like this could be done. And so the example, that I wanted to share with you was about a pipeline that they built in 1942. This was nearly a 2,300 kilometer long pipeline that they built from Houston via Chicago into New Jersey. So this was the time, when of Second World War, when the German ships were here in the Atlantic Ocean, and they were attacking the US ships that were taking oil from Houston to New York. And had that supply line got broken, the New York, which is the financial capital of US, it would have gone down, and it would have become very difficult for United States to sustain in that war. So we all can imagine, what they did was within a year, and as you can see in the pipeline, they built two pipelines which were nearly 2,300 kilometers long, and this was in 1942. It started in 1942, August 3rd, got completed August 14, 1943. So this is, how some of the countries, they dream big and they execute on this. What I also wanted to share with you is that there are a lot of good things with our country as well. It is not that, while we should always try and learn from other countries, there are great things we have done as well. Some of the examples we have is of Kukan Railway, the civil engineering marvel that our engineers have executed, or the launch of 100 plus satellite, or coming to different areas of aspects of life, the launch of International Yoga Day, which has been adopted, and I can see yoga being adopted in many countries, or even as recently as when the government ran an initiative on financial inclusion, and we had nearly 15 crore people getting access to banking system within one day. Now that's the total population of a country like Netherlands. That's more than the population of many countries in the Europe. So we should also be very proud of all the achievements that we had, and I think we are moving quite faster in a much better direction in the last couple of years. Now, after sharing all these experiences of how people in different countries work and how they look at work and how they execute work, I also thought I would share with you some of the aspects of the educational system here in the US, and what is it that is making them what they are. How is it that they are different kind of people, and what is it that makes them successful. Now my kids have studied here. My kids have also studied in India. We were in India from my children were in India from 2013 to 2019. So they have studied in US primary education as well as middle school. Since my daughter got in college last year over here, we returned back to US. But what I have seen in US is that there is a lot of emphasis on experiential and holistic learning. By experiential, I mean, they will try out a lot of things. There is no emphasis at all on memorizing something. And particularly in the initial years. One example I can give you is that when we returned to India, my son started, school in second grade in India. And usually in India, by the time kids are in second grade, they can write very well, they can write very fast. They are also required to do their homework in class and at home and things like that. And when my son went to school, he did not even know how to hold a pencil. So it started with that. Every day, there used to be a feedback from the teacher that, his speed is too slow, and things like that. As you can also see in the picture to the left, typical strength of a US school in every class is around 25 students. And most of these schools are government schools, so these are like our, ZP schools or Nagar Parishad schools and things like that. These are run by the local governments over here. And the teacher-student ratio is typically 25. And as you must have seen, as you can see in the picture, there is a lot of attention that gets to every individual. And as you can also see in this class, there is a guy on the right-hand side who is just standing and, walking out. So you can also see when you go to the schools, you will also find students are doing all kinds of things while the teacher is in class. You could even find some of the students lying on the floor, some of the students, with their back towards the teachers and things like that when they are doing. So a lot of, free environment. Another aspect of the educational system that I have seen is, there is a lot of emphasis on holistic learning. In fact, recently in my area, so in New Jersey, as you may all be knowing, there are a lot of, there is a large Indian community. And so in one of the schools, actually, the local people complained that, with a lot of Indian people, there is a lot of emphasis that is going to studies rather than, on the holistic development of the kids. So here, what we have seen is, the teacher tries to understand the characteristics of each and every student, and they will accordingly, coach and guide and, teach the student. There could be some students who would learn faster. Then for those students, they also have some set of separate classes. But then for other students, they have regular classes and they will pay a lot of attention. There is never a kind of competition that we have or ranking system that we have, that places one student, in a competitive position with respect to another student. And so each of the students, they feel very comfortable. So there could be a student who is very good in academics, and there are other students who are, good in some other areas. In our society, and of course, things are changing in our society also, in India as well. But at least in the days that we had, somebody being excellent academically had, was seen in a different light than somebody who had some other skills. And I think this holistic education has, so when I work with many of my customers who range in age from 25 years to 60, 65, even 70 years, what I have seen is, this holistic development that they have had in their initial years really has helped them in looking at things very openly, in expressing themselves very openly, in thinking about things very openly, and just sharing, what they feel and how they feel at work as well as, with their colleagues. So one of the examples, of this learning and how open things are here is that when students, enter colleges, while they may take admission, say for computer science or electronics or say history or some languages and things like that, typically by their second year, 80% of the students change their subjects, change the, subject in which they are going to major. So, they will start with something like computer science, they will take an admission for that. But next year, you will find that many of them have changed out of computer science into different fields. And same is the case with, people who have entered in liberal arts, somebody took an entry for history, and what they do is, by their second year, they change their majors. So something we don't see. And in fact, what I have seen is, the faculty in this colleges, they encourage that. So my daughter, she is in computer science, and I was a little scared when her professors were encouraging her to look openly at other subjects. Because, we as Indian parents, we want very certain things to happen, in a certain time and things like that. That's not the case over here. That's the kind of openness, that is promoted. People are encouraged to look. Of course, there could be some negative aspects to this as well, and particularly for Indian parents, it's very difficult to, accept those kind of things. What I have also seen over here is there is also a lot of emphasis on students getting independent and self-reliant at a very early age. It's very common, as you can see on this on the left hand side. There are jobs for teens that are there, and kids are encouraged to take up jobs. And as you may all have heard, most of the kids, they move out of their parents' home by the time they are in college. It is not considered to be very good socially or within the peer groups of students to be living with their parents. So that makes most of these kids independent. They think independently and self-reliant. I'll give you an example of one of my friend's daughter. He has been here for nearly now 22 23 years, and he is a software engineer. He works for a large company like Oracle. His wife is also a software engineer. But they allowed their daughter, who went into 9th grade, to start working at a coffee shop. So some similar to cafe coffee day. So she started working at a coffee shop, 9th, 10th, 11th, and now actually she is doing medical. So even when she was such a bright student, such a hardworking student who eventually went into medical, but she started job in a coffee shop, which doesn't happen in our case. In our country, we don't allow our kids to go out and try and be independent on their own. I wouldn't say there are not a lot of negative things about it, but when we talk about innovation and entrepreneurship, how is it that these people think differently? How is it that these people think out of the box? How is it that these people are ready to take these decisions early in their life, not to take up a regular job, but to start the business? This, I believe, are some of the things, which help them do all of those things. Now, when it comes to entrepreneurship and innovation, it is also very important for our country, because when we look at the kind of population that we have, the kind of youth population that we have, the growth that we have, right? India needs to create, in order to have an unemployment rate, a healthy unemployment rate of even say 5%, 6%, 7%, India needs to create 12 times the number of jobs that US needs to create every year. And we should remember that US economy is 10 times bigger than the Indian economy. So the challenge that we have of creating jobs is 100 times bigger than the challenge a country like US has. And so it means that unless we have a set of our young people taking up innovation or taking up entrepreneurship, it's not going to be possible for our country to provide opportunities to our young people. Of course, the days of government providing everything are gone. As we all know, those days of socialism where government used to take care of everybody are gone. Governments around the world are bankrupt. They have a lot of debt. They have a lot of loans already on them, and so that model is not going to work. And so we essentially have to look at a younger generation that is more self-reliant, that has the confidence to start their own businesses and maybe create jobs for others. One of the last things I would share with you as I work with customers, and as I have seen this transition, being somebody who was brought up in India and then moved globally. So one of the things that all customers now look for, and of course we Indian people have created a name for ourselves. There are many customers who are very, who do want Indian people in the team. They know that, if something has to work, then the Indian people have to be part of the team. So our professionals have gone around the world. They have worked extremely hard. They have worked with a lot of dedication, at the cost of their personal lives, and created a name for themselves. And as we continue to do that, as the global economy, becomes more closely knit, as we all work together. Now, many of our customers, they depend on companies like us or people like us or professionals from India to take care of business for them. If we take even the example of technology or IT field, now every business is getting driven by technology. If technology is down, even the business goes down, right? So technology has become a very critical component. In that case, the customers trust that, their partners or people from India who are working for them will take care of their business. And what I have seen, is that what I think, is an area for us to improve upon is the ability to say no, or the ability to admit that, we don't know something. Now, typically in our culture or our environment, saying no to something or admitting that, we don't know this is, something not looked upon very well. And so we people, usually don't do that. But when you look at, in most of the countries, be it Japan, be it European countries, even South Africa, South Africa has, to my surprise, has adopted a lot of things from, the European and European culture, or from American, or from these other cultures, which make them much more, which make them much easier to do business with. Of course, there are negatives in all of these societies, but, to my surprise, when I was in South Africa, I was surprised that, they had the kind of culture that this other countries expect. And what these other countries expect, because they are also brought up in such an environment, that if there is something we don't know or we need to learn from them, then we should frankly go forward and say that, okay, this is something I don't know. As I said, it comes naturally in many, many cultures, nearly in all of the cultures. In fact, I heard, while I have worked only a little bit with Chinese people, but what I have heard is that, from a cultural perspective, they are much closer to the Japanese culture or European culture or even the American culture, where they are quite open to admit that, we don't know something, or, we need to learn something. And I think this is an area that we all have to learn, and that will eventually, increase the trust, our customers are looking for. So that's pretty much, I had to share as far as, my experience of working around the world and having seen the educational system over here.
Thank you, Nitin, sir. Thank you very much. Nitin, sir, if you permit, there are a few questions from the participant sides. With your permission, can I ask those questions?
Sure. I will try.
Okay. We are with us Professor Bhushan Sabe, head of the electrical department, Vivo Institute of Technology. So over to you, sir. Bhushan, sir.
Sir is not there, but we have got his question.
Okay. Yes. Even on my mobile, I have received his question. Sir, on sir's behalf, I will raise his question. Is it recommended to work for 2 years in a small scale industry before starting your own business? That was the question of sir. So
Okay. I assume the question is that, after you finish your undergraduation, so you have bachelor's degree, should we work for a startup or a small scale industry for 2 years before, starting your business? And this is another area where I find a huge difference between, our country and particularly here in the US. Now, in the US, after graduation, if you try and apply for a job with no experience on your resume, you will not get any job. Whichsoever college you are from, even if you are from MIT and you after your bachelor's, after your undergraduation, if you go to a company showing no job on your profile, you will find it very difficult to get a job. Okay. So that is where, the students here, typically students here will start taking up jobs right from their ninth grade or 10th grade. They and they will slowly, graduate to different kinds of jobs. So when they are in first year of college, depending upon the subject in which they are pursuing their education, they will take those jobs. But by the time they are graduated, they already would have 2-3 years of work history. Now, what is also important to understand is how the companies here function in the context of this. It is not just the students who are seeking the jobs. It is also the businesses, and particularly small businesses who are seeking students, because a lot of times students are much easier to get. They come much cheaper for many of these companies. Many of these companies have limited resources. There are many small companies in the US which are just run by husband wife, or just one person or two people, and they really need help. And the students usually are of great help to them. I will give you an example of my daughter, who is right now doing an internship at a startup. Now, that startup is started by two people from Harvard, and this year they have taken 15 students on, internship. All these 15 students are from, some of the best colleges in the US, and they are not paying these 15 students. They told them that, we cannot afford to pay you, but if you are willing to work for us, we are more than happy to take you as an intern for around 10 or 12 weeks. And I am surprised the kind of work they will give these interns. They will give these interns work as good as that of a full-time employee. So all the students that I am seeing are working for their customers in China, in India, in South Africa, and in US. They have given them work of all full-time employees. Similarly, I have seen other companies also, just one person company, and they have taken 5 or 6 interns. So this idea of starting a job after undergraduation is pretty much does not exist over here. Even the same we used to do nowadays, right? After post graduation, or we used to try for some industrial project a bit earlier and things like that. But here, people start doing their job right from their ninth grade. Another one example I will give you. So I now see another student over here. So by the time that guy is in his third year of college, he runs a YouTube channel which already has 1.5 million viewers. And through that channel, he essentially teaches students on how to appear for college entrance exams and what are some of the good things they should do, and some of the things. Another related important thing I have seen with many of the students over here is there are a lot of voluntary work they will do. So not everybody will get, an opportunity to do work, right? So they will do a lot of voluntary work. And in fact, in the educational system that exists over here, when they are evaluating applications for college admissions, academics is only one part of the entire process of, defining the admission criteria. In case of our country, it is primarily driven by, how much of the marks the students have scored in all of these entrance exams. But here in nearly all of the top colleges, even up to top 50 colleges, the criteria that is used for giving admissions or for giving scholarships to students is not just based on academics. It is based on what they do as part of voluntary work, what they do as jobs, what kind of artistic skills they have, and things like that. So hopefully we will change this particular aspect, and then see on whether when to jump into a business, because I have also tried to jump into business at around 45 years of age, and then because of certain my personal situation I had to drop that plan. Of course, in people like us, we migrated to US and we settled here with all of the visa and everything taken care of. And by the time everything was taken care of, I was already 45. So that is what afforded me the opportunity when I was a bit financially secure to start, looking at my own options of doing business. But another, of course, thing is as to when to jump into a business also depends on the individual's situation, financial situation, personal situations, and things like that. I hope that answers the
Thank you,
question.
Nitin. Thank you,
Sir,
Nitin, sir. Nitin, sir, we have one or two more questions. Would you like to?
Yeah, please, please.
We have with us one more participant, Professor Mahalakshmi Pinjade from Atharva College of Engineering. And her question is, what are the actual challenges of innovation for engineering students?
Okay. If we consider, Indian system and whatever I have seen, so I typically travel to India, at least 2-3 times a year. And of course, I was in India till last year. While I was traveling around the world, I was in India for around 5 years. Um, so what I have, there are a couple of aspects, and definitely there are certain challenges which we have to try and overcome. Everybody has to work and overcome. There are certain challenges around the entire ecosystem itself. See, in countries like US, which has become industrialized, quite a long ago. Some of the industries are 50 years old, 100 years old. Just like Tata Steel, companies have been established long back. One of the French client that I used to work till last year, that company was started 250 years ago. That's a company by name Saint Gobain. So if you have an iPhone and you see the glass on the iPhone, that glass is made by Saint Gobain. Or many of the, on the car windshield and things like that, those glasses are made by Saint Gobain. So they specialize in, glasses and a lot of materials, advanced materials. Saint Gobain was formed 250 years ago. So there are, I currently work with Lubrizol, which you must have seen when we go on to a petrol pump. In the older days, they used to put some amount of oil in that, through that plastic pouch. So that is something which is made by Lubrizol. Now Lubrizol is also nearly 100-year-old company. So because of the industrialization that took place in the US long time back, and because it is not centralized only in large cities, unlike in India where, we have industries pretty much concentrated in certain cities, in certain clusters. In US it is spread out across a lot of places, lot of states. It's a very big country, 4 times the size of India, but the industries are all spread out, particularly manufacturing industry. And what happens with that is, given that smaller population, which is 1/4 of the population of India, there are a lot of people who are already involved in industrial activity. And with that, what happens is their kids naturally get exposure to, industrial activities, manufacturing activities, research and development activities at a much early age. So this is one aspect, the exposure to all of this. The second aspect is around the financial part of it. There are a lot of possibilities over here to secure financing or to acquire financing. Of course, there are lots of aspects to financing, and then there are some good aspects to financing and not so good aspects to financing. There are still a lot of people over here who try to self-finance their business, who try to grow their business on their own. And then, of course, in the recent years, there have been initiatives like crowdfunding and things like that, where if you have certain microfinance needs, those are taken care of by those. Usually the kind of financing from government agencies here or the financial institutions. Of course, most of the banking here is private. There is no government banking here. The loans from those are typically not very attractive. They have a higher interest rate. But then there are a lot of people who would want to invest in your organizations, in your smaller companies. There are certain initiatives, just like, we have this initiatives across India nowadays to find talent and things like that. So there are shows over here wherein, people come and go on to a show and present their ideas to billionaires, and then the billionaires will immediately take a call on whether to, provide funding to those businesses or not. So we also have to, as a country, we have to, evolve some of those, financing models. I can give you one example of one of my friends who had started a company in Bangalore in around 2005. This was an intellectual property driven business, which is what, everybody should aim at, because, the barrier of entry into that business is higher because you are driving something based on the intellectual property that you have. So the person had patents, very early, right in the later 1990s itself, the person had acquired patents by working in India itself. And they started a company in VLSI in 2005. And they unfortunately did not have the money. So they took funding from nearly 40 people in India, a small funding from 40 people. And what he told me was, the CEO of the company, that, see, once in a month, every investor would call. And what it means is that every day you are getting one call from at least one investor. And that one investor will take at least 2 hours of your time asking you, okay, what are you doing? How are you doing? And things like that. Eventually, they got so tired with, calls from all of these companies that they sold off the company to, one of the US investment companies. So these are some of the challenges we face with in India. Of course, on the financial system also, just like in China, there is not a lot of financing is accounted for, and so there are separate kind of challenges. Of course, our country is moving out of those and moving into better financial models. So I would say exposure to an industrial environment and then the availability of the financing models are two. Now, when it comes to exposure, I'll make one last point on to the industrial environment. I think if we encourage our students to take up jobs from their early age, to even work for free for many of these companies, many of these startups, that may start giving them the exposure and eventually, help them make their own decision.
Thank you, Nitin sir. Nitin sir, we have one more question.
Sure.
If you permit, we have with us Dr. Chaitanya Agrawal from Bhopal, and wish to ask you one question. Chaitanya sir.
It's pleasure to hear you after many years. Yeah. I feel in our country, we are very strong in hard work, in intellect, in efforts, but somewhere the topic that you have chosen, the innovation part of it, we are really lacking a lot. What is your advice for we, the academicians, to promote and to expand this faculty amongst the students? Please.
Sure, sir. Thank you. Always, good to meet you. And as I said, see, there is no lack of talent in our country. People like me who have studied in our country, in small towns, we have come here. And as I said, now our clients actually look at us. They say, okay, Nitin, what do you think about this? And there is a lot of respect that they have for us. So there is no lack of talent. As you rightly said, our people work extremely hard. Probably hardest of anybody other than Chinese people. Chinese people also work extremely hard. Some of the East European people also work extremely hard, from whom we face competition nowadays. But as you rightly said, we also have to, open up a little bit and see, how is it that, we can tap our potential. As I said, our country has to find out ways to do this, because the number of jobs that we have to create for our youth, cannot be created, if we continue in the model that, we currently have, with a lot of it being driven by the government. And for that, definitely, as I said, what would help is looking at what other countries are doing, and particularly looking at their educational system. So as you said, sir, the faculty and the educational system that we have, so entire educational system actually has a huge role. And that's where even that's the reason I also brought out the topic of, how the education here is, and right from the beginning. So they will allow the students to explore things. They will allow, people to experiment, to be unsuccessful. they don't label people as failures here in the societies like over here. So typically in our case, there is a lot of respect for labor. So even if you have somebody, you know, who may be at a CEO level, and then you have a people at a software engineer level, you know, they really would not, you know, keep that barrier between themselves. They will talk very freely, even when the communication I have seen. So I have worked for Indian companies and I have worked for the US companies, also American companies. What I have seen is, you know, when it comes to Indian companies, there is a lot of top-down communication, you know, so the top bosses will only talk to the bosses next to them. The bosses next to them will only talk to bosses, people next to them, and things like that. And then even the kind of communication is very filtered, you know, they will only pass on certain set of information to the next level. Whereas what I saw in US is, you know, there is very open communication. And it is not that even in India, now the kids are very smart. They know a lot of things. So it is not that even when the communication is not coming to them, they are unaware of it. They are anyway learning it from the internet. And, you know, nowadays there are so many sources. So we are hurting our organizations and ourselves by not keeping those channels of communication open. Whereas here, you know, they will openly talk about it. So even nowadays, you know, when you see the economic situation quite difficult, and some of the companies rationalizing on their staff and things like that, they will very openly communicate that. They will tell them, okay, this is what we have to do, you know, this is the situation we are into, you know, this is our financial situation, our customers have gone down by so much, you know. So typically something which does not have an impact on their stock situation or something like that, something which may not be legal from a legal perspective, they are very open in all of their communication. And that really also, you know, brings the staff also at a much better level of maturity, and to interact with the senior management at a much mature level. So that's another thing I have seen. So definitely huge role we all have to play, and we should definitely encourage this open communication, and also encourage our students, you know, to get into jobs early. You know, right from their college days or, you know, senior high school days. Hopefully, sir, that was useful.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nitin, sir. So here we will end up for a question and answer session. Nitin, sir, in your session, you have very well nicely explained what India needs to do, what kind of modification we need to have in our education system. Very interestingly, through your experiences, what you have experienced in the world, with the help of their cultural differences, the kind of methodology they have adopted for executing the war. So your observations, and with the help of the suitable examples, that gives us a very clear picture what we need to do, what kind of changes we need to adopt in our education system. So thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful session.
Thank you. Hopefully it was useful to everybody.
Certainly, sir, it will be useful to all of us, all the participants and all of us. Dear participants, tomorrow we have a very interesting session scheduled at 2:30 p.m. by Professor Chaitanya Agrawal on the topic, the secrets of self-empowerment through creative visualizations. So I will appeal to all of you to join well in time. Now, I will request to all the participants and the dignitary to stand up for national anthem. Over to you, madam.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जल जयति तरंगा। तव शुभ नामे जागे, तव शुभ आशीष मांगे, गाहे तव जय गाथा। जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। जय हे जय हे जय हे जय जय जय